Hi, how are you? Hope you're well. So today I am here to dip my toes into a brand new genre because I've been craving it for some reason. I'm obviously reading horror books this video, and I've only read two before. I read The Haunting of Gillespie House, which that one scared the shit out of me. And then I read Hidden Pictures, which I believe I made an entire video on that one, so I will link it down below. And for some reason this year I've just been really craving reading something spooky and scary, and so I'm going to do that. I have two in mind. I'm not sure if I'll be reading both this video or just one, and if I read just one, which one it will be. It's really just up to when the library gives me what. I'm going to try and read both, but I'm not making any promises. So we'll just have to find out together when comes what. But let's just get to reading these spooky books and seeing if I freak myself out, because I get scared very easily. Hi. So the first book we'll be dipping our toes into for Summerween will be The Twisted Ones by T. Kingfisher. As per usual at this point, I did actually end up finishing it already. I didn't mean to finish it as quickly as I did. I just ended up reading it a lot in one day, and by the time that I was ready to film an intro, I was so close to finishing it, I thought I might as well just put it off for another day and finish it and film the whole review, because when I was ready to film the intro, I was like 80% into the novel or over. So I did end up giving this book 3 stars. I did listen to it. I originally tried to read it physically. However, it was just, I think it's T. Kingfisher's writing style, because this happens with every single one of her books, where I just, no matter how good it is, no matter how interesting it is, I take forever to get through it. I read her novellas at the same pace that I would read an entire 400-page Frida McFadden book. It's insane. I ended up doing the audio, and the reason it's 3 stars is because I enjoyed it for the most part, but this book solidified the fact that I don't like folk stories, whether it's folk horror, folk fantasy, whatever it might be. It just does not click with me. Do not ask me why. I can't tell you. Like, if you held a gun to my head and said, tell me why you don't like folk stories or I'll shoot, you would have to shoot me, because I couldn't give you a reason. I just know that it doesn't click with me. That would also be an insane thing to do, so please don't do that. However, I did really enjoy this book for the most part. I've been wanting to dip my toes into horror, and I think this was a great starting point. Honestly, it wasn't scary. Most of the novel I felt fine. I wasn't freaked out or anything. I will admit though, there were some parts, specifically at the quarter to halfway mark, that was incredibly creepy, to the point where I got so freaked out I had to turn the ambient sound on my headphones so that I could hear what was happening around me, because I would hear my washing machine click and I would assume that it was one of the little bone monsters that snuck into my house or something. And so it definitely did freak me out a little bit, and it was creepy. However, aside from just a few moments like that for an hour out of the book, I really didn't feel overly overwhelmed by fear, which is both good and bad, because it is a horror novel. You pick it up for that, but also I get nightmares very easily, so if I don't get freaked out too much, I don't mind that. I really enjoyed the character. I thought she was a fun main character to follow. My only quip with her was that she was supposed to be, I don't remember exactly, but she was supposed to be either late 20s, like 29, 28, or early 30s, so like 31 through 32, 3. She didn't feel that age for me. She felt closer to being a 22-year-old woman than a 29-year-old woman, which her age is only really mentioned a few times in the beginning and then not again, so it didn't really bother me because I just forgot that she was the age that she was. But I do think it's a valid critique that she was written a bit young, and so if things like that really bother you, that's something to look out for. I'm going to be honest, there were also several things that I was not a fan of, which is the reason this book ended up being a 3-star and not higher. And I think the main problem with this novel was that it was not sold to me correctly. So I picked this novel up based off of a YouTuber recommendation that really loved this book. And they described it as a horror novel about a creepy, sentient house, which the house is definitely creepy, but it's not sentient. And all of the creepy things are mythological. I think they're called effigies. I think that's what they're called. It's a folk horror, and it partially dives into another world type of situation. I don't remember which YouTuber recommended it to me, but I just don't think that they described it well. And going into this book with the wrong expectations, I think did set me up for failure, because I love sentient houses. I can't wait to read The Starling House by Alex E. Haro because I heard it has a sentient house. I think it's so much fun. I love things that shouldn't be alive but are. I also love sentient woods and forests. So being sold that this is what that book's about, and then it being not only not about that but a folk story, which I already struggle with, just kind of set this book up to not be loved by me, which really sucks. But I still think it's a fantastic horror novel, and I definitely do recommend it, especially if you're new to the genre and you don't want it to be too scary, because I don't think it was that scary. Overall though, this book was fun, and I could see myself rereading it. It was one of those books for me where it was fun, I had a good time, and my qualms don't really affect my liking for it that much. I would recommend it, especially, again, I feel like this book is perfect for a summertime horror, because to me it just felt hot. Reading that book, like, it just felt like she was hot all of the time. So I do recommend it, and it was fun. Next, we will be reading a second horror novel. I have enough time, so very exciting, because this one I've been wanting to read since I found out about it, and that is They Bloom at Night. I'm very excited to start this book. It's about, there was a hurricane, and then, actually, you know what? Instead of me poorly describing this to you based off of the 10% that I've read, let me just read the blurb real quick. A red algae bloom has taken over Mercy, Louisiana. Ever since a devastating hurricane, mutated wildlife lurks in the water that rises by the day. But Mercy has always been a place where monsters walk in plain sight, especially at its heart, the Cove, where Noon's life was upended long before the storm at a party her older boyfriend insisted on. Now Noon is stuck navigating the submerged town with her mum, who believes their dead family has reincarnated as sea creatures. Alone with the pain of what happened that night at the Cove, Noon buries the truth. She is not the right shape. When Mercy's predatory leaders demands Noon and her mom capture the creature drowning residents, she reluctantly finds an ally in his deadly hunter of a daughter and friends old and new. As the next storm approaches, Noon must confront the past and decide if it's time to answer the monsters itching at her skin. I'm only a little bit into it, and it's a bit of a rough start. I tried reading the first chapter and it didn't click with me, so I'm doing the audiobook. It sounds really, really interesting, and I really want to like it. I'm just nervous because, based off of the writing style and the little bit that I have read, I don't know if I'll click with it. And it's also a young adult horror, which I've only read one before, but in my experience, they're not the most horror-y. So we'll see. It sounds interesting enough. I want to know what happened. We already know that the party, her older boyfriend, I think definitely did something really bad to her, which I'm not excited to read about, but I don't know. That's just kind of based off of my guesses from the blurb. And I did also check the trigger warnings, and SA is there, so definitely check. Definitely check the trigger warnings for this one. I'll also link them. I'll link the story graph where you can check the trigger warnings down below. And it also says body horror, which I'm very nervous for because I don't like gory things at all. So we'll see. I have no clue how this is going to go, but I was very excited the first time I'd read the blurb a few months before it came out, and reading this blurb now has me excited. So yeah, Hi, so I am back with an unfortunate update, and you can probably guess, I did actually end up DNFing They Bloom at Night. I didn't want to. I'm going to be very honest with you. I did not want to. I tried to push through as much as humanly possible, but I just was not interested in it. Everything about the blurb that sounded interesting to me just was not really making an appearance. And then I read through the trigger warnings and realized that there were a couple of topics that I really just dislike reading about. And to be honest with you, this is my second YA horror novel, and I just don't think that those two genres go together. The horror elements, at least to me, are never that great. They're never really anything substantial, and it's a shame because I want to enjoy them. They sound interesting, but I just end up being bored, and it's just vaguely suspicious rather than actually scary. And a lot of the times the actual horror just comes from body horror, which I really am not a fan of, rather than it being actually scary, you know what I mean? I wanted to be spooked, but instead I was bored, and that's really just the main reason why I DNF'd it. I'm very sad about it because I didn't want it to go this way, but it did, and so yeah. I wouldn't say I don't recommend this novel because I don't think it's bad by any means. I just genuinely don't think that it's a novel for me, for my taste personally. So if you have similar tastes to me, then I wouldn't recommend this. However, if you have different tastes from me, I would recommend giving this a shot. So yeah, unfortunately Summerween was kind of a dud, but it's alright. If you like me or my videos, I would really appreciate a like, comment, and subscribe if you feel like it. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you so much. Bye.